let's talk about one of history's greatest, most audacious military gambles. Back in 218 BC, a Carthaginian general named Hannibal Barca did something that was, for all intents and purposes, impossible. He marched a massive army, complete with war elephants, right over the Alps to attack Rome. For more than 2,000 years, exactly how he did it was a legend, a path lost to time. But today, we're going to see how modern science finally cracked this incredible 2,000-year-old cold case.
So what's the first thing you think of when you hear Hannibal's name? It's got to be the elephants, right? Well, a huge part of what makes this story so legendary comes down to this number, 37. That's how many war elephants he supposedly marched through treacherous, icy mountain passes. Just try to picture that for a second. It's so wildly improbable, it's no wonder it's captivated people for centuries.
And, they had every reason to be terrified. For an army made up of men from North Africa and Spain, the Alps must have seemed like an alien planet. The ancient writers tell us the soldiers were filled with dread. They were facing sheer cliffs, deadly drops, and weather they had never, ever experienced. The only thing that kept them going was an almost fanatical belief in their commander.
Okay, so let's set the stage a little. In the ancient Mediterranean, you had two heavyweights, Carthage, a powerhouse in North Africa, and the rising Roman Republic. They were locked in this epic struggle for control. Hannibal, seeing a Roman invasion on the horizon, decided to flip the script. He was going to do the one thing no one thought possible, take the fight directly to them, in their own backyard.
Now you might be thinking, why not just sail there? Well, Carthage was a great naval power, but by this point, Rome's navy was just better. A sea invasion would have been a suicide mission. So Hannibal's only real choice was this grueling, absolutely brutal overland route, a plan so dangerous, so insane, that the Romans would never ever see it coming.
And this, right here, is where our real mystery begins. Think about this, an army of tens of thousands of men and animals on the move. And yet, for over 2,000 years, nobody has ever found a single definitive piece of physical proof. Not one coin, not one sword, not a single bone that could tell us Hannibal was here. It's truly one of the greatest cold cases in all of history.
So if there's no physical evidence, where do we even start? Well, we have one star witness, the Greek historian Polybius. Now, his account is gold because he actually tracked down and interviewed veterans from Hannibal's campaign. It's like getting testimony from people who were really there. He left us a trail of clues in his writings, descriptions of a pass with a commanding view of Italy, areas with snow year-round, and a huge landslide. This is the roadmap everyone has been trying to follow.
Okay, so using those clues from Polybius, historians have narrowed it down to 4 main suspects, 4 possible routes. A few on the north were plausible, a central one seemed a bit more direct, but for centuries, most everyone dismissed the southern route, the Col de la Traversette. Why? Because at almost 10,000 feet, it was the highest, the steepest, and the most treacherous of them all. It was written off as simply impossible. But what if impossible was exactly the point?
For literally centuries, the debate was stuck. It was all just scholars arguing over how to interpret these ancient texts. But then, modern science stepped into the ring. An international team decided they were going to hunt for a completely different kind of evidence. Microscopic clues buried deep in the earth for millennia. They were looking for the smoking gun.
And this was the fundamental question they were trying to answer. How does an army that massive, all those men, all those horses and elephants, just disappear? You can't. They had to have left behind a massive biological footprint. The scientists were convinced that somewhere, buried in the soil, the evidence had to be waiting.
So their strategy was actually pretty brilliant. They went right to the impossible pass, the Col de la Traversette, and found a boggy area just below it, a perfect spot where an army might have stopped to rest. There, they drilled deep into the ground and pulled out these soil cores. You can think of them like a timeline, where each layer of sediment tells a story. And then, they started looking for a layer that just didn't belong.
And guess what? They found it. Deep down at a level that dated to right around 2,200 years ago. Bam! Exactly Hannibal's time. They hit this layer of soil that was just a total mess. All the other layers were neat and tidy, but this one was completely churned up. As one of the scientists said, something had to disturb it, and it had to be something big.
And right here, this is the smoking gun. They analyzed that churned up layer and found a massive spike in a type of bacteria called Clostridia. Now, what you need to know is that these bacteria absolutely thrive in animal manure. In the normal soil layers, you see less than 1% of it. But in what they started calling the Hannibal layer, it jumps to over 12%.
There's really only one way you get a concentration that high. Thousands and thousands of animals all in one place at one time.
Okay, so the proof of thousands of horses is an absolute game changer. But we all know what we're really interested in, right? What about the most famous members of Hannibal's army? Let's talk about the elephants. Why did he even bring them? And how on earth did they manage to cross the toughest mountain range in Europe?
First things first, what kind were they? Well, this ancient Carthaginian coin is basically Exhibit A. You can see it clearly depicts an elephant with those big rounded ears and a slight dip in its back. That's the signature look of an African elephant, not the Asian elephants that were more common in ancient warfare. Specifically, Hannibal was likely using a smaller, now extinct subspecies from North Africa.
And here's the really wild part. Elephants are surprisingly almost perfectly built for a journey like this. Their feet are incredible. They basically walk on their tiptoes, cushioned by a huge fatty pad that acts like a natural all-terrain shock absorber. Their legs are like straight pillars, which makes them super energy efficient for long marches. And get this, when it came to crossing deep rivers like the Rhone, their lungs are structured in a way that lets them go underwater and literally use their trunks as built-in snorkels. Amazing!
So, let's tie all of this together. We have the soil science, we have the animal biology. How does this connect back to the mind of Hannibal himself? It all comes back to that one big question. Why choose the hardest path?
Well, this new scientific proof pretty much seals the deal for the Col de la Traversette. It's the only one of the 4 suspects that perfectly matches all of the key clues from our star witness, Polybius. The incredible view of Italy from the top? Check. Areas of snow that stick around all year? Check. And crucially, geological evidence of a massive 2-stage landslide, exactly the obstacle Polybius described. It all lines up.
So why do it? Why take this absolutely punishing route? Simple. It was brilliant strategy. Hannibal knew a Roman army was lying in wait for him near the French coast. Taking any of the easier, more direct routes would have meant walking right into a fight. But by choosing the impossible path, he achieved total surprise. He essentially popped up in Italy completely unopposed.
But I think there was something else going on too. Something psychological. This journey wasn't just about moving troops from point A to point B. It was about forging an army. By leading his men through an ordeal that nobody else would even dare to try, Hannibal was building his own legend. He was creating a bond with his soldiers, forged in a shared, almost supernatural trial by fire.
And that leaves us with this one last fascinating question to think about. We always focus on the incredible battles Hannibal won after he crossed the Alps, but what if the crossing itself was his greatest victory? Was the impossible journey just the price of admission to Italy, or was achieving the impossible the whole point? A psychological weapon designed to prove to Rome and to his own army that he was a force of nature they had never seen before and would never see again.